What would you say you do here?
Well, look, I already told you. I deal with the goddamn customers so the engineers don't have to. I have people skills. I am good at dealing with people. Can't you understand that? What the hell is wrong with you people?
Welcome back to Thick and Critical. This is Wes. Second time this week, we've got Percherino on the channel. Now, there was an interview on The Hollywood Reporter with Jim Lee and Daniel Cherry talking about some DC comics, maybe their future. Obviously, here with me to talk about that is the man behind Comics by Perch. Perch, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing, Wes?
I'm doing excellent. Now, I learned some things from this article. I did not realize that WarnerMedia owned The Hollywood Reporter.
Yeah, that kind of that checks some things out there, doesn't it? Wouldn't you say?
This is the most cookie cutter softball, like lazy art. Like it's so long, you figure there's going to be information that's really interesting in here. Not really.
No, it's more of a press release than an interview. It's a press release disguised as an interview, really.
Yeah, as I was like, I did not realize that they were into bed together. There's some really interesting stuff where I'm just going to talk about the quotes, separately of Daniel Cherry. Then we'll get into Jim Lee. Also interesting, just up front, they credit Daniel Cherry with this, the initiative that features a black Batman.
Yeah, that was from Dan Didio. It actually, those deals were signed before Cherry came into the company. But
John Ridley's done an interview and specifically said, Dan Didio brought me in and was like, we would like you to write a black Batman. What do you think? Yeah,
it's, you're going to cover it with a lot of things, but this interview is strange because, number one, when was it done? This is clearly not a new interview. This had to have been done months ago, or there's just no way this is current. And two, we've seen several people, like you mentioned, talk over these things, talk over the fact that Didio did this, recently. So they're conflicting themselves. It's a very odd interview.
It was very odd. Mr. Cherry himself, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but he speaks essentially gibberish the whole time. He never says anything specific. It's just corporate speak is what it sounded like. Yeah,
it is. It's and I was on your show and on my channel a year ago talking about how hiring a high-powered marketing person, someone with new media experience, was a good idea for DC, and I still believe that's true. And a lot of people were, all over Daniel Cherry being a diversity hire and other things. Those comments were made heavily on YouTube, and I'm like, well, let's let it play out. A year later, it's hard to be excited about the prospect of this guy bringing some heavy marketing. When you look at interviews like this one, it's just it's very tone deaf.
Absolutely. So let's get into his gibberish corporate speak. This is a quote. As a major player in the industry, it's really up to us to redefine what it means for the next generation of fans and to build the right type of organization that can future-proof itself to meet that fan demand. So the changes that we are making organizationally and also with our content is so that we can evolve this industry and meet fans where they are.
Oh, sorry, I fell asleep there. What was that?
That doesn't mean anything.
No, it is a word salad of material. This, I don't even know what to say.
Did Brian Michael Bendis write this for him? What the hell?
It's just, it doesn't mean anything. And granted, a lot of corporate people doing marketing kind of quotes like this talk like this. So maybe part of it is less that this is particularly egregious and more that just this sounds like, he could be talking about toilet paper or lotion or video games or car tires.
He's talking about product.
He's just talking about some random thing that he's brought in. And it's like this is just a recycled quote from anything. And comics and entertainment properties need a little bit more than that.
And the weird thing really is, Perch, is these guys don't speak almost ever on the record. So when they finally get there, he doesn't say anything. I'll give the Hollywood Reporter this. They did follow up and say, what is future-proofing? And I was like, we're going to get some information. He says, we talk a lot about the 4 R's. So I was like, oh my goodness, Kurt Angle here. Reach, relevance, responsibility, and revenue. When we talk about revenue, It's not just to DC. It means to the comic book shops, the creators, and folks who help build this industry. And our job is that we increase the reach as far as possible, not just North America and South America, but globally. There's a lot of bullshit in there, Perch. I don't see them doing much of anything to increase the revenues for comic book shops. I don't see them investing in comic book shops. In fact, I see them investing outside comic shops, trying to move their audience somewhere else. It sounds like, from everything we've heard, is that they brought in all new creators to save money. So revenues going into creators isn't right.
No. I mean, they're driving down rates. I mean, there's a lot of people upset at DC right now because of rates being driven down. Comic shops, I mean, it's not. I think, getting into other markets, I think, is healthy overall, but there hasn't been an outreach to comic shops. Comic shops used to get a stipend for doing advertising, and DC would pay back. Those days are gone. They don't do that. There hasn't been any new programs for comic shops. There's been mixed messages on Free Comic Day and initiatives like that. So they're
not offering for returnability anymore?
No. I mean, best case, we're saying they've done nothing. Best case for retailers, they've just the status quo. But I like you said, it's a Kurt Angle moment. Don't start giving quotes where you got the 4 R's. I mean, I don't even know what you're doing at that point.
He's talking to his staff. He's not talking to the customers. It's really strange. And he also says, when we're here for revenues for the folks who help build this industry, I'm assuming that's the creators who created all these stories and characters that they're capitalizing on.
Sure.
And DC certainly has a better reputation than Marvel. But, we see a lot of people, Bill Messner-Loebs has done some wonderful things with Wonder Woman. The guy had a GoFundMe like not that long ago for health issues.
No, I mean, Mags has GoFundMe now. Right now that just went up. Hey, there's some creators out there who would love some royalty checks. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, but that might be a good thing to do. You're putting out movies. I'm sure there's be some people who appreciate that. You've got some trades and omnibuses that are long out of print that would give people a little bit of a check. I mean, I'm sure the creators would like that too. So, lots of options for you. You could reliability, responsibility, and I mean, sure,
retainability. That's what it is.
Yeah,
get out of here. And then he, increasing the scope, our reach as far as possible globally. DC, Infinity or whatever the new digital app is. Yeah, it's only in North America.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, globally is one of those things that always people talk up as being this massive challenge. And it's not easy to go overseas. But, I mean, Viz seems to be doing a pretty good job right now of getting content in the U.S. from Japan. And I don't know, Shonen seems to be having a global app, get stuff all over everywhere. The French are working with paper cuts, and they're getting their content over here in the U.S. I mean, it doesn't seem that hard, barely an inconvenience. People are figuring it out. So this DC initiative, it's like a year in and we're going to talk global. It's like, hey, find a distributor. There are literally thousands, and get your comics out there. That would be a good place to start.
So he was all over the place. And this is the last quote I want to talk about from Daniel Cherry before we get to Ghibli.
Yeah.
And he says, and our responsibility is a big one as well. We talk about being fan first. We do listen. We also listen not just to the core, but the casual fan. And we want to have products to meet them both.
Sure. Sounds great.
I don't feel like I'm listened to.
I mean, what does it mean, listen to? I mean, that you're going to like...
hear you.
Maybe he's talking about that DC contest poll on Twitter that,
the round robin tournament.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe that's the initiative you're talking about. I mean, look, the best way to listen to people is to put out content they're asking for. And then when you find new markets, try and put out content that will reach them. When you're going to make something for YA schools, don't feature school shootings in the book that's going to schools. That would be a good idea.
Uncensored F-bombs and all kinds of crazy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of options.
So the Daniel Cherry part of this is a mess. He does not come off very well. He comes off as just corporate speak marketer guy. Thankfully, Jim Lee did not come up in marketing. He actually came up in comic books. So when he answered a few questions, he was a little bit more forthright and provided maybe a semblance of an answer that you can actually look at and get some some idea what he's talking about. Speaking in response to the pandemic, this is what Jim Lee had to say. Part of what we've done in this year was think about the infrastructure and the resources we have and where we want to place our biggest bets in terms of the publishing business going forward. The world opening up a little bit, the fans responding to the content we launched earlier this year, Future State and Infinite Frontier has made a big difference. Yes, it's clear that they looked where they placed their big bets, and they placed their bets on Batman and really high-priced comic books.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. It's let's take the stuff that's marginally. I mean, you remember a year ago, a little less than that, Jim Lee talked about how 30% of the titles were not selling, and there were some issues around the bottom tier, and they were going to work to kind of try and correct that. It's an interesting kind of about face in this one where, I mean, look, cutting to the chase, when I see both people, and including Jim Lee, the takeaway I get is that both individuals have no real concept of what the company's actually doing or selling and haven't checked in on the office in maybe months. That's the takeaway I get.
I'm with you. We definitely get that here in a second. When he was asked about kind of shutting down permanently in July, there was that rumor. He says, occasionally you will run across that article or tweet and I have to bite my tongue to not jump into the conversations. It's the furthest thing from the truth. If anything, it's the exact opposite. The comics that we publish, the core canon we establish in comics is driving everything that we do across DC and media. We are constantly referring to the characters as we build DC beyond the publishing world. I don't see that at all. I'm watching Suicide Squad, the movie with Harley Quinn, and I read Suicide Squad Get Joker. Those are two different characters.
Sure. No, absolutely. There's not that connection at all with any of this stuff. I mean, the comics themselves, you got the characters doing kind of radically different things from title to title. You go to video games and movies, they're completely different. I mean, maybe he's talking about the fact that you get the Harley Quinn cartoon and then, 3 seasons in, they finally vomit out a comic that more or less resembles the cartoon, I guess. But still, it's a mess. And it just, all of it comes across like somebody who's not connected to the industry. And by the way, that line, I have to bite my tongue not to say anything. Dummy, your job is to say something. Literally, your job is to actually clear up some of these rumors. So don't say, I can't say anything. Who's stopping you? You're in charge. You actually are the person who's supposed to set the record straight. You don't need to bite your tongue. You do not have a corporate overlord saying, oh, you can't respond to the trolls. You can. You can go on, you can do interviews, you can go on shows, you can be on Twitter, you can say, look, I've heard some of the rumors, absolutely not true. That's the whole point of your job, dummy.
Yeah, he's like the face of the franchise.
Yeah, I did that line. That line is the one that just gets me the most. The entire interview is like, my hands are tied. I can't possibly respond to these people who are saying the company's about to be shut down. It's like, that is your job.
Well, that and apparently he's in charge of characters across the mediums, so much like Kevin Feige is over at Marvel. And you just don't. I do not see it at all.
No,
yes, we are getting Peacemaker in a TV show, a movie, and we do see him in the Suicide Squad right now. That's probably the most success that they've had. Otherwise, we've got like 9 versions of Batman.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's the omniverse. Everything works. So why not?
Everything.
I like Jim Lee. I've loved Jim Lee for a long time. Great storyteller, great, obviously great artist, and I think he's a great guy. The frustration here is that we see these people who are good at something and they get put in a position of leadership, and then they proceed to just, I don't know, like in the most generous way. Are you out golfing all day? What are you doing? Because when you do interviews like this, and this is where Hollywood Reporter, that is owned by WarnerMedia, should protect their own individuals from looking completely clueless, because that's how this comes across. I say this out of love for you guys, for Cherry and for Lee. Don't come across looking like you have no idea what's going on with your business. You have to be better than this. And it's not that hard. And no, I don't think you should be responding to every tweet from every individual who's saying the company is going to stop shipping comics in July or whatever it is. But you can set the record straight more than once a year. I mean, that's not that hard. You can do it. Lots of other people are doing it. Nick Bertucci over at Diamond is more active on Twitter. I mean, come on, run your company.
So you're just set me up with all these softballs. This is the last quote I wanted to talk about. Jim Lee is referring to the upcoming DC Discovery merger that they're working into, where they're unhinging WarnerMedia. It's going over with Discovery to make this big streaming giant platform on itself. The bottom line is it's business as usual. Past the initial surprise of the announcement, at the end of the day, we're still moving forward, trying to reach the goals and objectives we have for ourselves. The impending merger, in my opinion, does not materially change anything.
Yeah. I mean,
how does it not?
It's obviously going to change a lot of things. Joke about Shark Week aside. See, even my dog is upset by this. He's banging on the door like
I don't blame Bluffy.
He's going, stop saying these stupid things in interviews. That's what's, see, even the dog knows. No, look, you can't do this stuff where it's like completely absurd statements. And especially after a year where you had layoffs and you had all kinds of things happen where clearly it changed the business. You laid off big parts of your staff. A merger is coming up. Say, nah, I think it'll be fine. Nothing will go wrong here. Come on.
There's so many things that you could say there. Like, we're excited about the new challenge. Once the, everything gets laid out, we're champing at the bit to get in there and really change DC and move it forward and all this stuff. It's like, nope, nothing's happening. What are you talking about? There's a merger?
Yeah,
that's get out of here.
It just reinforces the feeling like the both guys are completely disconnected from their business. And again, for a puff piece article made and produced or published by a company you own, part of your family, don't do things like this. It makes you look hollow.
And I honestly did not know that they owned a Hollywood Reporter until I read this. But you get a few paragraphs in, you're like, this is really strange.
Yeah, it's very strange. Very, very strange.
It's like when you have an airline magazine and they're doing like a profile on the airline.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. It's disappointing to see. I expected better from Cherry. I definitely expected better from Lee. It's a lot of people at DC not happy with that interview. They their employees. I mean, worst of all, their employees feel it's tone deaf. Just should be better. Do better.
I'm glad I'm not the only one. I had no idea coming into this. I just read. I was like, my goodness, this is awful.
Yeah.
But we'll see what the future holds for DC Comics. But it doesn't feel like Jim Lee will talk again in 2 years.
I mean, it feels like there's, I think good things will happen for DC. I do. I think they'll put out good things. They'll put out bad things. I just think that these two are kind of irrelevant to either of those, but good or bad. That's just a shame.
It is. So I do want to say thank you very much to Perch. Really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.